Chapter 74. The Stalker. Misunderstanding and jealousy begin to get hold at the start of their marriage. Hyunki held her close to him, holding her hands, and then embraced her tight, tearfully. "Let us work things out, Riel. It is not too late, and we have all the time to make our marriage work. I don't want to lose you." Riel and Hyun found themselves sobbing. Then he touched her face, wiped her tears with his thumbs, kissed her forehead, lifted her chin, and kissed her lips, then said how sorry he was. "Forgive me, Riel. Forgive me, please. I am so sorry for having doubted you. It will never happen again. I promise." Then he pressed his lips to hers. Riel reciprocated his kisses, and Hyun became aggressive and domineering. They became passionate, making them forget what had previously transpired between them. And as they both gasped for air, Hyun's tender and gentle caress on Rieler's body once more gave her a thrill. Like electricity creeping into her veins, she gave in to his demand. Their insatiable thirst for each other intensifies as the sounds of the crickets chirping around the garden became louder, and the cool breeze coming from the open balcony gusts into their bedroom. They stayed in their room hugging each other until the evening swallowed the brightness of the mid-afternoon. The following morning, Riel was asleep in Hyun's embrace as the morning sun peeked from their window. He could not take his eyes off his beautiful wife, her face so radiant and peaceful. He began touching her hair and brushed them with his fingers. Then Riel moved her body unconsciously closer to Hyun and embraced him tightly, then laid her legs on top of his thigh. Hyun was thrilled. As his lips touched her face, Rieler's eyes opened slowly, then raised her eyes to look at Hyun. She smiled and touched his chin, then tickled it. Then, seductively, she said, "Let us stay in bed for a while, babe, and let us feel each other's warmth. I want to be this close to you and wrapped in your arms." Hyunki beamed sweetly, his dimples distinctively showing, raised his elbow, and let it rest on the pillow with his head leaning on his hand. His fingers ran over Rieler's face, crawling to her eyes, cheeks, and lips, and said, "I'm all yours today, babe." He held Rieler's waist and moved closer to her, then he warmly embraced her and whispered, "I love you, my Riel. So much." It was 10 o'clock in the morning when Hyunki's mobile rang. It was Hwan Chul. "The corporate officers were waiting for the papers you should sign yesterday, because this is crucial. Hyung, are you coming?" Hyun slapped his forehead and recalled the abrupt discontinuation of his paperwork yesterday. "I'm sorry, I forgot." He paused and looked at Riel, who quickly nodded to Hyun's reaction, then continued, "Okay, I'll be there." Hyun kissed Riel and said, "You're coming with me, because after this signing, we'll lunch out." Hyun and Riel arrived in due time at the conference room. The officers all stood up and gave a courteous nod at Riel, and she sat in the corner, while Hyunki presided over the meeting. Disagreements and loud voices went around the room, until they slowly died down to peaceful resolutions. After a while each officer passed the documents for their signatures, and once in a while, Hyun glanced at his wife, making winks at her. After a few moments of discussions and closing, Hyun held Rieler's hand, and they walked together to his office, wherein she was met by Louis and Alexis, who were so glad to see her. "Mrs. Riel, how wonderful of you to drop by. It has been so long. Are you not coming back yet? We missed you," remarked Louis. "I can't tell. I am still having a nice time with my work in the bank," Riel replied smilingly. "Ooh, we hope we can work together again. Our teamwork was great back then," Alexis commented. Riel beamed and nodded agreeably. After several more signings of documents by Hyunki, he said, "I'll be going out with my beautiful wife for lunch, then I'll be back." Meanwhile, a mysterious person was keenly observing and searching for Riel. The stalker was anxious about why Riel was not in the bank. Dressed in a dark suit and wearing dark shades, he pretended to be a depositor and walked directly to the bank teller's window. He asked, "Excuse me, miss, but I don't see Mrs. Riel at her table. Where could she be?" "Oh, you mean Mrs. Han. She didn't report for work today. She had an emergency since yesterday afternoon," the clerk replied smilingly. The stalker thanked the teller and moved away briskly. Then, he grinned. "Huh. They must have fought. And now she couldn't come to work because she was in trouble." The stalker clenched his fist and punched his other palm, thinking his action yesterday was a success. He soothed himself, saying, "Now they are fighting. Hyunki must be disappointed and angry. Could he have slapped her hard?" He touched his cheeks, imagining how painful it was to be slapped by a man's hand. His trust in her had diminished, and they will continue to quarrel, and voila, Realer Sagoner. He walked merrily away from the bank and mumbled, "Your happy life will soon come to an end." So he laughed by himself. He thought sending those images of Riel and Akio Hinode eating in a Japanese restaurant and hugging in public would start the couple's endless fights. Meanwhile, Hyun and Riel were having a good lunch, enjoying their togetherness. "Babe, after lunch, would you come back with me to the office and let us have a dinner date? It's been a while since we had dinner dates, excluding our honeymoon of course, but during our usual routines, I miss these," Hyun said. "Yes, we had not done these for the longest time. I indeed missed having lunch or dinner dates with you, babe. Let us do this all the time," Riel suggestively commented. The stalker thought of calling Hyun Ki's office to know the turn of events. His absence may mean his bitterness and heartbreak. So, he made the call. "Hello, could I speak to Mr. Han Hyunaki? I'm sorry, but Mr. Hyunaki was out for lunch with his wife, but they will return later." "Who am I talking to? And any message?" Alexis asked the caller. The stalker was startled, couldn't say anything, then said, "No message. I'll call back later." "Thank you." The mysterious man became furious, unexpecting this kind of news. "What? What happened?" "No. How could this happen?" He was disgruntled and paced the floor, thinking of what to do next. "I could not accept defeat. I must destroy them. But how?" The stalker sat to think. Then he got an idea. He took his mobile and looked into his contacts, and when he found the name, he dialed it and talked to that person. Later that afternoon, Hyun and Riel were so happy, holding hands as they walked to Hyun Ki's office. While Hyun was busy with his work, she thought of seeing Hwan Chul, and Hyun nodded, saying yes. Riel knocked, and Hwan Chul was slightly surprised, but glad about her visit. "What's the pleasure of this visit by my sister-in-law?" Chul gladly asked. "Oh, nothing. I just thought of seeing you since I was here," Riel smiled. "Sorry to ask, not that I'm meddling, but Hyun left yesterday so angry, and told me there's an emergency at your home. But look at you. You look well to me," Chul curiously asked. "Somebody sent photos of Akio and me at a restaurant yesterday and took another when Akio hugged me. Akio had left the country for good, so that's the reason for him hugging me. Someone was stalking me, Chul. And what I disliked was creating enmity between Hyun and me." Chul was despondent. "If only I knew who was doing this to you. Although I had one in mind, I'm not sure. And I don't want to create suspicions because it might prove me wrong. Then tell me who was that in your mind. Maybe we could do something about it," remarked Riel. "I was wondering if it could be Sarah? As I know," William Congreve quoted, "Hell hath no fury as a woman scorned. Sarah's silence could be deadly, you know. If only Hyun had listened to me. I told him to send Sarah and her dad back to Korea, since his dad was retired and had nothing to do with the company. I spoke to him. When Hyun broke up with Sarah, the immigration officers may catch them for overstaying and have them deported, or they go home voluntarily. But why Hyun didn't act, if he was aware? Were they still seeing each other when we got back together?" Chul couldn't say a word. I don't know, Riel. I'm not sure either." Chul and Riel stared at each other, and both had thoughts running through their minds and opinions. Then Riel shoved her hand, dismissing any thoughts about Hyunaki and Sarah. She said, "I don't want to raise doubts about them. It would only burden my serene mind." Then she bid her leave and walked back to Hyunaki's office. While Riel was sitting on the couch waiting for Hyun, she watched her husband intently, having questions running through her mind. Why didn't he send Sarah back to Korea, knowing she was overstaying as an alien, and might have trouble with the immigration officers once caught? Were Sarah and Hyunaki still seeing each other, despite our reconciliation? Before our marriage? She was deep in her thought when Hyun glimpsed at her, staring at him. Am I that good-looking and irresistible? My wife? You can't seem to get a hold of yourself from my good looks, Hyun boasted. Riel smiled, walked toward Hyun, and embraced him from behind, kissing his cheek. Which is why I got attracted to you since day one of our meeting. Your eyes behold me, and your dimples have smitten me. Meanwhile, the mysterious man was so restless, and his anger was getting into his head. He was having a conversation over the phone, then said, "Where are you now? Okay, let's talk. I need your help." The man disconnected the call. Hyunaki and Riel were on good terms again, and both agreed to keep making their marriage work. Could this mysterious man lose his fight against Hyunaki and Riel? Keep following the exciting episodes in the Windows of the Heart series. More are coming.